Hello class, and welcome to today's algebra lesson, which is about solving proportion. The goal of today's lesson is to be able to solve proportions. Before we get started, a couple quick vocab terms. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers using division. The most common way you're going to see a ratio written is by using a fraction. So for example, 2/5 is a ratio saying 2 out of the 5 parts. A proportion is an equation that states two ratios are equal. So for example, 2/5 is equal to 4/10 is a proportion because that sets up two equivalent ratios. When we are solving proportions, we want to use the cross product property. What that is saying is that if you multiply on the diagonals, so as a general format, A times D is equal to B times C. So we can multiply on the diagonals and those two things should be equal. As a numeric example, if we do 2 times 10 and then compare it to 5 times 4, that's going to give us that 20 is equal to 20. So when you have two things that are equivalent, our cross product is going to be equal, and that's how we can solve the proportions. A quick demonstration, if I had 2/5 is equal to 3/10, which we know those fractions are not equal. If I go through and do my cross product now, it's 2 times 10 is equal to 5 times 3. 20 does not equal 15. So if my ratios are not actually equivalent, this cross product property doesn't hold. When you are solving proportions, and it's telling you that the two ratios are equal, we can use that cross product property. So I'm going to start by doing A times 12, which is just going to give me 12A. And then on the other diagonal, I have 4 times 9. I can then solve 4 times 9, which is going to give me 36. So I've got 12A is equal to 36. Then we just have a one-step equation, and I'm going to solve by dividing by 12 on both sides of my equal sign, and I end up with A is equal to 3. Just like any other equation, you can plug it back in. 3/4 is the equivalent fraction of 9/12. You multiply the first one by 3 to get to the second one. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Cross multiplying, 15A is equal to 27 times 25, gives you 15A is equal to 675. Dividing gives you A is equal to 45. When you are cross multiplying, if there is an expression in one of the blank spots, you're going to have to use the distributive property. So for example, when I start this one, I've got 7 times 25 on that first diagonal. And then on the second diagonal, I have 35 times, and then in parentheses, I'm going to keep that numerator value together. So 35 times x plus 2. Then as I simplify this, on the left side of the equation, I'm going to end up with 175 is equal to, when I distribute, 35x plus 70. Then I'm going to go ahead and solve using my SAD/MEP steps now. So I've got minus 70 on both sides of my equation, giving me 105 is equal to 35x. And then in order to get rid of that 35, I'm going to divide on both sides of the equation, which is going to give me a final answer of 3 is equal to x. Again, you could plug that back in. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 over 25 reduces to 1/5. 7 over 35 reduces to 1/5. So again, we can check it out and know that our answer is correct. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Cross multiply and do the distributive property. Follow SAD/MEP to solve. You're going to get an answer of x is equal to 20. One more of these distributive property ones, we can also end up with variables on both sides of the equation. So when I cross multiply this first part, I get 24 times x. And then when I cross multiply the second part, I have 9 times the quantity of 2x minus 3. On the left side of my equation, there's nothing to continue to distribute, so I've just got 24x. And on the right side, I end up with 18x minus 27. Now, because there's variables on both sides, I need to get those variables together next. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 18x to get my x's together. That is going to give me 6x is equal to negative 27. Make sure you don't lose that negative sign in front of the 27 there. And then I'm going to finish by dividing both sides by 6. And that's going to give me an answer of x is equal to negative 4.5. Or if you wrote it as a fraction, x is equal to negative 4 1/2. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Cross multiplying, moving the variables together, and then dividing, you get an answer of b is equal to 10. Last thing we can do is if we are solving a word problem, we might have to set up the proportions. So it says the scale on a map of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is 3 inches to 10 miles. That's going to be my first ratio. Those values go together, so I'm going to say 3 inches over 10 miles. When you are setting up proportions in word problems, it's going to be important that you keep those labels with your numbers so that you make sure you are setting up the proportion correctly. Then it says the length of the Ramsey Cascade Trail is about 1 1/8 inches on the map. So when I set up the rest of my proportion, this 1 1/8 inches needs to go in the numerator because I put inches in the numerator of my first ratio. I'm going to go ahead and turn that 1 1/8 into 1.125 inches. Easier to work with decimals sometimes. And then we are looking for the actual length of the trail. So that x is going to be in the bottom, and that's going to be a miles quantity. Now we use that same steps of cross multiplying to solve. So first I've got 3 times x, which is 3x. And then on the other diagonal, I have 10 times 1.125. As I simplify, that's going to give me 3x is equal to 11.25. And my final step then dividing is going to give me an answer of x is equal to 3.75 miles. Make sure, as I have said before, that if you are answering a word problem, that you are including the label as part of your answer. Go ahead and try this one on your own. So our first ratio here, the 40 centimeters over the 5 years. Then we have the x centimeters over the 12 years. Cross multiplying to solve is going to give you 336 centimeters in those 12 years. If you have questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please feel free to reach out and let me know.